Hi, everybody. My name is Leslie Pyle, and I am the founder of HireMyMom.com. And I'm excited today to have Casey Gromer with me with She Sweet Boutique, and she's going to tell us a little bit about herself and about her business. So welcome, Casey. Thank you so much for joining me.
Hi, Leslie. I appreciate the invitation. I've been following you for years now, and it's so good to meet you face to face and to chat. I am Casey Gromer, and the She Suite Boutique is an agency, a consultancy actually, of fractional integrators. And what we do is we run businesses for female founders. And I know that sounds a little crazy, but we use our own system called the Entrepreneurial Growth Formula. And we also kind of follow some of the philosophies of the EOS worldwide system from the book Traction. And so what we do is we help these visionary business owners, women business owners who have amazing ideas that are driven by passion and purpose. We help them step out of the day-to-day operations of the business, because it's the ideas that they have that's what keeps the business growing and moving forward. And so we actually take over their P&L and everything associated with the P&L and executing the business plan, so they can focus on the culture of the business and the future direction of the business and creating all of those amazing ideas.
Right. So you take everything off their plate so they can focus on what they enjoy, what they're good at, and what their passion is.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so tell us, from solopreneurs to the seven-figure mega dollar makers, um, they're always being told to act like a CEO. So what does it really look like to be a CEO or visionary of your business?
Yes. Well, I think there's, we're coming around to this new idea a little bit more and more, but I think the original idea of being CEO was having your hands in the business and having your hands in everything. And we know that that doesn't work because it spreads us too thin, and it puts us into areas of the business that we maybe aren't so good at. So this idea of being CEO is focusing on our visionary tendencies and helping us focus on the things that we excel at. And if you think about the reasons of why you started a business, in fact, I was just thinking about this earlier today. Just because you are really good at what you do, which is why most people start a business, right? We're really good at what we do, or we're really passionate about something, does not necessarily mean that you are also good at running a business. And so if you focus on what you're really good at, and then you partner with somebody who's really good at running a business, and then you've got that's what makes you the CEO. So you're the person with the ideas, the forward thinking philosophies, the big relationships of the business and the company culture. And that's really what being a CEO is, and the ability to let go and to find and nurture people to support you in those areas that you don't do as well is what makes a good CEO leader.
Right. Yeah. And that makes so much sense. And I'm guessing you also help people that are looking to scale their businesses and they're kind of stuck and not really knowing what to do, where they're at.
We really have a niche focus. I call it like the teenager stage of business, because you sort of have you start, you're a startup, and sometimes as a startup you're a solopreneur, or maybe you're a startup with some venture capital or whatever. But then you start growing and you add a few people to your team, but then you get to this phase where you're not quite, this multi-million-dollar business with big budgets and lots of, backing, but you're in this in-between stage. And that's really our niche, because what we do is we kind of get you over the hump of, we've hit the ceiling and we're not, we kind of have this in-between phase where we need some really professional level support, but our budgets don't account for hiring those really expensive professionals on a full-time basis. So we kind of build a fractional team for you of all of the people that are going to help you make better decisions, and they're going to help you execute to a higher standard. And eventually, our goal is to work ourselves out of a job, because we want you to get to the size of business where you have that budget and that need for professionals at this level for a full-time basis.
Right, right. Yeah, that's a good way to look at it, kind of the tween part of, where you're in the middle of being an adolescent and an adult. So very
Yes.
cool. Okay, so next, many women business owners are not hiring at the same rate as their male counterparts. Why is that? And what tips do you have?
I think there are a lot of reasons that women are not hiring to the level of their male counterparts. And one of the first reasons I think many of us can agree is that women have a hard time asking for help. And one of the reasons I think that is because lots of women are multi-talented, and we can do a lot of things. We're used to multitasking, and we're used to taking care of everything ourselves. And so when you apply that to the business, it's almost this mentality of, I can do that, so I should. And that we really need to step back from that and say, just because I can do something doesn't mean I should. And so I think that's one reason that women are hiring less than their male counterparts. And the other reason I think women are hiring less than their male counterparts is a confidence issue. So we are used to not being in leadership roles in lots of situations. And so when you start hiring people, you're in this leadership role, and there might be some concern about putting yourself in that role. And there was another reason, and it just flew out of my head.
One thing that came to me as you were talking, maybe you'll remember while I'm talking, is it's almost like we as moms sometimes think that we have to be a super mom and we have to do everything. And
Yes.
sometimes I think we feel guilty when we are
Yes.
failing in one area, or we just don't have time in one area. So for instance, like, I shouldn't hire a housekeeper, I should be able to do it all. No, that's like, when you can afford to outsource, you're not only freeing up yourself to do more, but you're also giving someone else an opportunity to earn an income. So I've changed my mindset in that way, and have a housekeeper. If I needed a tutor for different stages of my kids' lives, I wasn't afraid to ask someone else to help them. Because sometimes, it's been a long time since I took algebra. I can't remember how to do it. So, those sorts of things where we think we should do it all as a mom, but that's one of those lies, I think, out there. So it's probably similar as a woman business owner.
Yes, absolutely. And some of it might have to do with money mindset also. Traditionally, and I'm not saying that this is, across the board, but traditionally the finances have been in years past, when women haven't gotten to the place we are today, have been handled by the men. And when you hire somebody, there's a financial aspect of, now I am not only responsible for my own finances, but the finances of someone else too. So there's just, and then the last thing I think is holding women back is, where do I find these people? Because a lot of women that are hiring, and even the women in the $1 million businesses that we work with, don't need full-time people all the time. And we just didn't realize that was an option, to look for fractional type people, or part-time people, or contract type people. And so, we just tend to not do it, because we think, well, I don't have enough work here to hand off to someone else. So I think those are some things that hold us back.
Right. And you might think, okay, well, yeah, I can hire an assistant part-time, but could I hire a higher level person part-time? It is something that people think, that you either have to go hire a full-time employee or nothing, but you're right, that's not the case.
Yes. And a lot of times the assistant role is one of the first hires we make, and it can be really helpful. But I think what most women find is that they've hired assistant, but it doesn't necessarily take stuff off of their plate like they thought it would, because they still have to manage the assistant. And so thinking through, like, what is the role really that I need to have filled, and how do I find a person that really is truly going to be self-sufficient and taking something off of my plate to free me up. I mean, that's the goal, is to free yourself up.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. I agree. Okay, so you believe in defining your own success. So tell us about that.
I love this question. It's very timely. There was on social media this last week, there was I think it's the Female Lead is the account that I follow, and they shared a meme, and it was something that Michelle Obama said about, it's not how much money you make, but it's what kind of impact you make on other people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I just shared the heck out of that, because that is like one of our huge values at She Suite. One of the reasons that we migrated into calling ourselves the She Suite Boutique and focusing on female founders is there's a lot of hype out there right now. If you're in business or you're an entrepreneur, you're following these experts, and I'm doing air quotes right now for all you podcast listeners. There's experts that talk to you about, certain income levels, and that is what defines your success, or certain amounts of investment, or certain numbers of customers you serve, or there's all these gurus and vanity metrics and people out there telling you, like, that when you get to this level, you're successful. And we absolutely do not believe in that whatsoever. We think that, especially for our female founders, most of them are very passionate about something. I mean, they've started this business because they see themselves making a difference in the world. And so what we do when we come in is say, we need to define that. And we define it and we make it tangible, and then we track against it. And we're like, hey, now we have something that we can look at and say, we're there. We're successful because we've done what we set out to do. So we've defined our own success, and it doesn't matter what Wall Street says, and it doesn't matter what, this book author said. It doesn't matter what anybody says. We have to celebrate our own wins and what's important to us.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And I've said that throughout the years, that my version and my definition of success is totally different than someone else's. And they're both right.
Right.
Because
absolutely.
It's subjective to what your goals, what your passions, and what your heart is, not what someone else says it should be.
Yes. Well, and what we see sometimes is that when you're following expert advice and you internalize that advice, we find that we find that it's easier to deviate from your own vision and deviate from your own values into a scenario or a picture of what someone else is doing. Mm-hmm. And it usually does not turn out very well in the end, because you're missing an incredibly important piece of the big picture.
Right. Yeah. Trying to remember, always stay true to yourself.
Yes.
It's great to get advice and tips and listen
Yes.
to podcasts and everything, but you have to take what fits you.
Yes.
And leave the rest for the next person, which will fit them.
Yes, I love that. I love that approach.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what are your three key tips for accountability and follow through? Because we know that is one of the biggest struggles for business owners, because they don't have anyone to hold them accountable.
Yes. So the funny thing is, I have started noticing that I need to do what I say. And how do I word that? Like, I need to take my own advice. Yeah. And so we've even started doing this here at She Suite, but because when I recognized that our clients were being really successful, but we were kind of letting ourselves fall slack, one of the first things that we did internally that's been helping is we make an appointment, a CEO appointment with ourselves every week. And that appointment that you make with yourself every week to hold yourself accountable has some specific components that are required. And that's the important piece. So you want to, so the three things are the CEO date, have to have your plan and you have to know your metrics. So that's where we get accountability from. There's a few other components that we filter in there, but those are the top three. So when you have your CEO date, you have to keep it, because that is the time where you use to not only reflect on what you accomplished, but also to look ahead into what you still need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And when you, to understand what you've accomplished and what you still need to do, you have to have your plan. And when you're setting up your plan, we like to kind of look out a year from now. And, you know, we're not always going to be 100% accurate at where we need to land a year from now, but it gives us something to shoot for, so that we can break that out into smaller segments of 90 days. Mm-hmm. So we plan our plans in 90 days, and that gives you your goals. Yeah. So you want to be reviewing those goals on a regular basis. So, you know, it depends. For us, it's weekly. For some businesses, it might be bi-weekly or even monthly, but you need to be looking at them and say, how are we doing? Are we on track or are we off track? And if we're off track, is there an issue? Mm-hmm. And then that third piece is the metrics. And I want to be clear that when I say metrics, we need to think outside of the box, because there's some basic metrics like, yeah, we're going to look at our revenue, we're going to look at our profit, and we're going to look at some of those things. But metrics also, we want to identify, like for my role, for example, what are the activities that I'm doing on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis that are moving things forward in the business and moving us closer to the goals. And so that's my metric. Like, what is that thing? And I need to commit to doing however many of those things in a given time period. So that's kind of our metrics. So for example, if sales calls determines what your revenue is, like, it's that if you don't do sales calls, you don't have revenue. So we've identified sales calls as a revenue generating activity. And so we need to commit to doing a certain number of sales calls a week. So that's a huge piece of our accountability, is not just did we hit our numbers, but are we doing the things that we need to commit to doing to helping the business meet the goals?
Right. Yeah, I love that. Scheduling that appointment on your calendar so that you don't overlook it, forget about it, or book something else. If you even just have in your mind, okay, I'm going to do this weekly, but you forget, you get busy, something else comes up, but that's really good.
And I have got to give a shout out to our solo entrepreneurs and business owners, because doing this and making that commitment to yourself is so hard. Mm-hmm. It becomes easier when you have your first team member, because you are accountable to somebody else besides yourself, and it's easier to do that. So if you are a solo entrepreneur and you can do that on a regular basis, you are going to get virtual high fives from me.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, let's talk about purpose, plan, and profit. How do these three key elements work together to create balance?
Well, so I mentioned a little bit earlier when we were talking about creating our own success and not somebody else's definition of success. Uh-huh. And part of that definition of success comes from some sort of passion or purpose that you have. And I've spent over 20 years in the marketing realm, and so I have a lot of history of human behavior under my belt. And if you are interested at all, or have studied human behavior, or even just, aware of human behavior, we tend to gravitate towards other people or companies or things that share our similar values. And if you've got a company that's 100% driven by how much revenue they can make and how fast they can make it, mm-hmm. they might be very successful in the short term, but they failed to create that long-term connection with those customers. And it is kind of like a burning through cycle of just revenue. So similar to our own personal selves, and creating balance, I have a little logo on my website. It's a triskelion for anyone who's interested in looking up what the triskelion is, but it's a three-legged, like Celtic type symbol. And the idea is that if you have one leg or two legs of the triskelion, you're going to topple over if you try to sit down on it like a three-legged chair. But when you add that third leg to the chair, you're in balance. So our philosophy is that if you have the passion and you have the purpose,
Mm-hmm.
and you use that passion and purpose to connect with your customers and to connect with the people that you've hired as a support team, where they're employees or contractors or agencies, or they're working for you once or they're working for you long term, the profits are just naturally going to follow. And it may not happen overnight, but it's sustainable, and it's because you're doing everything for the right reason, and your team members and your customers are going to know that, and they're going to feel that, and it's going to show up in your bottom line.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really a great way to look at it. I hadn't heard that before.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Um, okay, so if you pique someone's interest and they're like, okay, I wonder what it's like to work with Casey and her team, what does that process look like?
We have a discovery call, or you can call it a consultation or whatever, but the best next step is to hop on the phone with us, because we want to get to know you and your business, and we want to understand what's important to you, so we can determine if we can support you and how we can support you. And a lot of the folks that hop on those discovery calls with us like to go to our website first, because we do have quite a bit of information out there about how we work, what types of things we do, and what businesses are a good fit for a fractional integrator. And our website is at she-sweetboutique.com. Hopefully this will be in the show notes, because
Yes,
I
it
just
will.
I just clobbered that. But so if we do decide to work together, we have a 4-phase sort of process of how we come in, and we basically revolutionize your business. And the 4 phases are the strategy, the planning, the people, and the process. And there's no science to it. It's not like we come in and say, on this date we start this phase and we end on this date. But we do have some rough time frames. It's like an 8 to 12 month process, all in and done. But there's so much work behind the scenes we're doing. The strategy phase is that passion and purpose phase, where we're making sure that the vision of your company translates into a persona. So we're basically turning your company into a person, because people connect with other people. They don't connect with companies. And that persona that we're creating is all about the brand, and it's all about the customer, and it's all about the streams of income and how you're filling the needs. And then the next phase is, how do we take that, what we know about the purpose, and turn it into the plan. And so we have the plan involves the plan, and it also involves getting a draft set up of your metrics. So how are we going to know when we do reach that success point? And we do what's called an accountability chart, which is, now that we know what has to happen, do we have the right roles to make that happen? And that's usually a place where we start to make some changes. And that leads us into the people phase of, now we know what roles are needed in the business. Do we have the right people in the right roles to make this happen? And then the final phase is the processes. And this is basically just ongoing, because in the processes phase, it's like a cycle, right? So we're reviewing our strategy, plan, and people at given intervals throughout the year. And also processes are where we have the plan, we have the people, and now we want to become more efficient. So we are creating processes for communication, and processes for accountability, and processes for getting our work done. So all of those standard operating procedures. So that phase 4 is when we bring everything together and just continuously improve and improve and improve. And that cycle of process is where your business growth comes from, because once you've got an operating system or framework that works, then it's just continuously getting better and better all the time.
Right. So am I understanding correctly, if you're working with the business and you see, okay, there's a need for some marketing, then you have someone help with the marketing. Or if there's really a need for some, I don't know, accounting, is that where you help them either bring in the right people, or you and
Yes.
your team do that?
Yes, so that is a fabulous question. So what we do in that area is we evaluate. So maybe you already have a bookkeeper on staff. And so we look at the situation, and we would always try to keep people that you've already have a relationship with. So we
Mhm.
look and say, okay, is the bookkeeper, do they fit this role? Do they have the right skills? Do they share the same values as the company? Are they a good fit?
Right.
If they are a good fit, then we can either, maybe they just keep doing what they're doing because they're already doing a great job, or we can mentor them
Mhm.
into doing things a little bit differently, or maybe providing a higher level or a different level of support. Or we can say, you know what, this isn't the right fit. And so what we would then do is um, figure out, we would do like the job description
Uh-huh.
of who we would need to fill that role, and we actually go interview and find people to fill that role, which is where Hire My Mom comes in for us in many situations, where we are able to put our job descriptions out and find a perfect fit for a role, and we hire them and onboard them and add them to the team. And we have had fabulous luck doing it. In all of the successes with all of our clients we've had, it's been a people fit, where we've been able to bring in the right people to do the right things. And it's amazing how quickly that can turn a business around.
Yeah, I love that. That sounds like it would be, just so easy to help someone get from this phase, where they're kind of stuck. They don't know
Yeah.
which direction to go, what they need, and they're kind of used all their skills and knowledge, and they just need
Yes.
somebody to push them through to the next phase. So,
Yes. That's exactly what we do. And the nice thing is that as the business owner, as the visionary, it feels good. Most of our clients are feeling relieved because they feel like they found somebody. They can actually walk away from the business for a period of time and things will be running smoothly. And that's really, we talked about what a CEO look like, that's what it looks like. It looks like you being able to walk away from the business and trust that the rails or the train is going to stay on the rails while you're gone. And that means that you've done a good job of communicating your vision and finding the people that know exactly what they need to do to support that vision.
right, you've got the right team, the right processes, and everything's flowing. You can, look for other avenues that you want to expand into, or
Yes.
whatever your goals are.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow, Casey, this has been so fun and so informational. I know I'm not the only one that learned, because I remember when I heard the term fractional integrator, I'm like, what in the world is that? And so
Right.
it just, it was one of those terms I hadn't heard until maybe a year or two ago, and I had no idea what it meant. So I know that a lot of people are going to be curious and learn a lot from this interview. So thank you for joining me.
Well, and thank you for the invitation, Leslie. Like I said, I've been following you for several years. Many years ago, when I started having kids and I left corporate, I stumbled on Hire My Mom, and I actually found a side gig at that time because my brain is always moving, and I wanted to continue like doing so. I've never not made money before. So I'm like, how do I make money and like raise babies at the same time? And so I've been on both sides of Hire My Mom. And so, yeah, it's so good to connect with you and chat on a personal level.
Yeah. And you are my favorite kind of story, because I love when a mom has used it to find work and then finds her place, finds her niche, finds her passion, and grows her own business and comes back to hire. So that's always
Yes.
so satisfying to me. It's almost like my little, not my kids, but my little people have made it in their own way. And so I love that.
It's a definite pay it forward opportunity for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Great. Well, like you said, I will have links to Casey's business in the notes and all. So if you didn't get her link, you can be able to click on it and visit her website, ask her more questions, set up an appointment with her, or whatever you want to do. But thank you again, Casey. I so appreciate your time.
Thanks, Leslie.